Welcome. It is September 18th, 2023. I'm your host, Gabe Hernandez, publisher and AEIC of ComicalOpinions.com. We're going to jump into this week's newsletter. Our first article on the newsletter is our op-ed talking about whether or not DC Comics is in trouble. Now, forgive me, sure, it's a clickbaity title. It's a little bit over the top, but sometimes you got to have attention just to kind of to get your point across. But it's a valid question because I think there's some things that are going on, whether or not there are enough problems going on within the internal guts of DC Comics that we should be more than a little bit concerned. So let's get into it. The first thing we're going to say is right off the bat, I don't believe in coincidences. I'm always looking for patterns, and usually, I would say 9 times out of 10, a pattern really speaks to something that's going on. Where there's smoke, there's fire. You've heard that saying more than once. And in this case, there's a little bit of smoke going on, maybe a lot of smoke going on, depending on. And it just struck me that there's something going on that is that doesn't speak well of DC Comics, at least in the near future. So the first thing I want to talk about is whether or not what's going on with DC for the year of 2023, just from a company perspective and also from a content strategy perspective, particularly from editorial and the types of comics they're putting out. It's been a bad year for DC Comics. I think that's fair to say. I don't think anybody would dispute that. The Lazarus Reign event wasn't great. It started well, it ended well, and both of those bookends were really mostly due to Mark Waid and his writing on that particular event. Night Terrors was a disaster. If you believe the Comic-Con numbers, and I fully admit that those numbers are very highly estimated, almost to the point of unusability, but they do show you some comparative trends as far as how DC does against Marvel and how they do against other titles that are on the market. And DC took a really huge hit by going with Night Terrors as a line-wide event, and it really killed any momentum coming out of Dawn of DCU, which actually had a few books in there that I think people were starting to enjoy. Green Lantern was showing some promise. Action Comics is showing some promise, depending on which of the short stories you go with. Superman was showing some promise. Same thing with Shazam, also with World's Finest. You had a lot of books that are for DC that if given the right sunlight and soil and watering, have potential to really go somewhere and really to take a place within that top 10, top 15 sales numbers and sales trends. Night Terrors absolutely killed that event. We know we spend a lot of time talking about Night Terrors because it was earmarked by so many terrible decisions. But as we say, sometimes you just got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. So hopefully these broken eggs will lead to an omelet for DC Comics. We'll see. But overall, 2023 has just been a very bad year for DC. But the reason I'm bringing this particular topic up as to whether or not DC is having some internal struggles, some internal problems, is not because of the events. It's not because of the books that are on the shelf. It's because of people. And when you see people start to make moves that are symptomatic of a deeper problem, that's when I start to look for patterns. That's when I start to look for patterns of behavior indicate that something's going on. So I'm going to talk about 3 specific examples, all of which just happened in the last 3 months. The first one, this one you may have seen, Nico Leone, who's the current artist on Catwoman, written by Tini Howard, put out a public statement around the end of July, July 28th. And I have links and screen captures of all these particular examples in the op-ed. So if you're interested in reading that, just go for it and take a look for yourself. Basically what he did is he called out DC Comics for giving him scripts late, indicating that he would not have enough time to do his work, and that would reduce the quality of the comic. Now, complaining about getting late scripts is nothing new. Complaining about it publicly, that is a little strange. And complaining about it publicly before the comic even comes out, which basically means you are criticizing or speaking ill of the people that are currently employing you, that's a little strange. Well, let me take it back. That's a lot strange, especially for somebody like Nico Leone, who is he's not a class A artist. It's not like he's in demand all over the world. He's not like an Alex Ross or somebody like that, for example. So he's a very good artist. I'm not taking anything away from him, but it's not like he can command work at any publisher he goes to. So that's a little bit odd. The second example, and this came up this week, and it's a big talk of the town, so to speak, is Bill Willingham's announcement that he's firing. I say that in air quotes, firing DC Comics because of his poor treatment with respect to the Fables line of comics. And his response to that is he's taking his ownership stake and putting it in the public domain. Now, it's a symbolic gesture from what we can tell so far, meaning that DC still owns the publishing and distribution rights. So if you own the comic characters, but can't really do anything with the comic characters from a comic creation perspective, does that really mean anything? I'm sure there's some legality to it with respect to copyright infringement and what have you, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe you can write novels based upon Willingham's version of those characters, which in and of themselves were already public domain characters, but we'll see. But it was telling that you had Willingham, who's a known creator. He's been around for a long time, basically taking DC's contracts and their money and publicly throwing it in their face. That seems odd. Again, has been around long enough to know better, but also at the same time seems to be really fed up with the way DC is handling things. Third example, I'm going to pick on our wizard, if you will, the kind of weird occult dabbling weirdo. I say that with reverence and love, Alan Moore. So he put out the announcement roughly about the same time as Willingham's, which I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, saying that he wants DC to take all the proceeds that he would have gotten from their use, or in his words, abuse of to Moore is kind of a kook in some ways, personally and professionally. Black Lives Matter has already been debunked. A bit of a sham charity organization as well. So you put those two together, and then you have Alan Moore saying worshiping demons is too much or is not enough. Donating to a charity that's already been debunked as a kind of a sham charity is not enough. But enough. I can't deal with that. So what that Alan Moore's just kind of a weird guy. Anyway, so what you're getting there is within the context of just 3 months or less, technically speaking, 3 creators, all that are currently actively engaged with DC in some kind of contractual relationship, and all of them publicly making statements that they basically say, take your work, take your money, and go stuff it. And that seems troubling to me. At least that's indicative of a pattern of behavior from people doing or saying these things publicly. And so what does that mean for DC Comics? Right now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's a pattern. It's an interesting pattern, and it's possibly going to be a trend that I see continuing, if not accelerating. If that happens, then there's an indication that something's really rotten within the core of DC Comics, as with respect to how they treat their creators, how they deal with contracts, and what that means for people. If you're a comic reader and you love DC Comics, I would say be prepared for it to get worse before it gets better, as far as how they're putting out comics and how they're putting out events and how they're engaging with creators. If you're a creator or an editor and you want to work with DC Comics, you may want to rethink that strategy, at least in the short term, because it looks like they've got some house cleaning that they got to do. And if you are currently engaged with DC Comics, either as an editor, creator, whatever, and you think what I'm saying here in this op-ed is way off, shoot me an email. Let me know. We'll have a talk. We'll record it or not if you choose to remain anonymous, and set the record straight. If I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong, and I'm happy to do it. I do it all the time. So that's the op-ed for today. If you want to read it in full, plus see the examples and the articles that are cited as all the referential information, please go to comicalopinions.com. Or actually, go to comicalopinions.com/subscribe. The newsletter is right there for sign up, and you can get the full newsletter. It gives you all the links to all the documentation, as well as all our reviews and everything else that's happening. So that's the op-ed for today. So we're going to move on to the rest of the newsletter. So if you're a subscriber, thank you very much. You're going to get this newsletter every single Monday. If you're not a subscriber, please go ahead and read it. It's free, but also consider being a subscriber, because your support helps us keep going. Next up in the newsletter, we have a poll. We're looking at maybe doing some interviews. Interviews seem to be the big thing these days. Everybody's doing them. But at the same time, we recognize that maybe there's an opportunity to talk to creators, and maybe not just writers and artists, but also maybe editors, people who are part of that publishing arm of the companies, and maybe there's an opportunity to have some meaningful conversations. So if you think that's a good idea, and you want to know we want to know what kind of interviews you'd be interested in, there's a poll in the newsletter only for subscribers. So if you want to participate in the poll, please subscribe, and you can add your vote to the poll and let us know what you think. And so with that, let's move on to the reviews for this week. And it was a solid week, pretty busy, but we're going to talk through some of the reviews that we had and let you know what we think. So Rebel Girls #1. These are both indie submissions, and they were okay. The Enfield Game Massacre #2 from Image Comics. This was a very close pick for our pick of the week. It got edged out by one other title, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but excellent stuff coming from the folks that made that, Texas Blood. So if you like Westerns, you're going to love that comic. Creepshow Volume 2, #1. I would say that it was half good. Garth Ennis went a little over the top with his story there, so that kind of brought our score down a little bit. But if you like horror, that's a good pick. Scarlet Couture, the Munich File from #2 from Titan Comics. That's a good crime noir thrillers type of comic. Bloodborne, the Bleak Dominion #1. This is Cullen Bunn coming back to the Bloodborne line of comics from Titan. Swallow of Shades #1. Technically speaking, this is an indie submission, but it's really from a small publisher called Dead Sky Publishing, which we're going to keep an eye on. This is a splatter western, which basically means westerns with gore. It's gore horror. So, and it was pretty gory. So if you like gore horror, check that one out. You've Been Canceled #4 from Mad Cave. That ends the series. That's basically a social media twist on The Running Man. So that finished strong. It finished strong. So that's a good series right there. Good, nice, solid all the way through. Project Reese #2. This is Zach Thompson's take on gold hunters for Nazi gold under a mountain in Europe, where they find some weird stuff. Necronomicon one shot from Zenoscope. This is a sort of a tangent or a tie-in piece to their Year of Lovecraft. Grit and Gears #6 from Blood Moon Comics. This ends the steampunk western story, and it ends on a kind of a wistful, soulful note. So it's a good series right there. Tox #3, also from Blood Moon Comics. This is the future dystopian pandemic apocalyptic story where mutants really start to kind of pick up their pace as far as attacking the last one on Earth who appears to be pregnant. And this is our pick of the week, Madness #2 from AWA Studios. J. Michael Straczynski knocked it out of the park with just a raw depiction and representation of just rage. Somebody who's just been pushed beyond their limit, and they just go to town on everyone and everything in their way. Just the raw emotion in that comic is why that one edged out Enfield Gang Massacre, and it's good, and it's our pick of the week. Gargoyles #9 and Negaduck #1, both from Dynamite, both Disney Comics titles, and both of them were okay. Negaduck, I think we like better. Gargoyles was a bit of a slow burn. So if you like court dramas in your Gargoyles comic, that's a good one. But otherwise, Negaduck, I think, is our better of the two Disney picks this week. So moving on to what's coming up next week. We may have a surprise or two in there for you. ISOM #2 from Ripperverse. If you submit, we review. So that's where we're going to include that one in our title reviews next week. Exodus Z #1, also indie submission. And then we have the list we have from our main publishers is getting pretty hefty, but it's a good list. Robotech Rick Hunter #2 from Titan. Red Sonja Volume 7 #3 from Dynamite. Big Game #3 from Image. This is Mark Miller's continuation of his epic summer crossover, and so far has not disappointed. So we're really looking forward to that one. I think that's the one to keep an eye out for pick of the week. We'll see. Fish Flies #2 from Jeff Lemire. The first issue was strange but very interesting, so we're looking forward to that. Spawn #345 and Gunslinger Spawn #24, both from Image. Pathfinder Wake of the Dead #3. This is Dynamite's continuation of their adaptations roll top gaming properties, and so far they've been doing okay with that. Under the Influence #3 from Mad Cave. That's the what if social media turned out to be a cult type comic. So that we're looking forward to see where that goes. Tier Collector #1 from Blood Moon Comics. Have no idea what that's about, so we'll see. Antarctica #3. That's the alternate universe mystery involving a father and daughter. Gunbreed #3. That's the anthology series regarding an undead sheriff who takes care of a cursed town. Sherlock Holmes #1 from Zenescope. This is picking up also from the Year of Lovecraft, elevating Holmes into a more main title. I'm not sure if this is an ongoing or a limited series. We'll see. Blip Mat #1 from Titan. I had no idea what that's about. We'll find out. Monomyth #5. That's Daniel Hazan's take on students who are kidnapped by a wizard to become students, but with a dark twist. And Disney Villains Hades #2 from Dynamite. That was actually, the first issue was very good, very entertaining. So we'll see if they can keep that up. Gargoyles Dark Ages #3, also from Dynamite. That's a prequel series to how the Gargoyles first interacted with humans. And Victory #4 from Dynamite regarding Vampirella's adopted sister. So we'll see how that turns out. Okay, so that's the list for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're looking forward to the reviews. Hope you enjoyed the reviews we have. As always, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Please share this newsletter. There's a button right in the newsletter. If you're listening to this on audio podcast, please share it and give us a good review, or just let us know what you think. Comments are always appreciated. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, or watching this on YouTube, I should say, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and let us know how we're doing. We're always looking to make things better. So this is Gabe Hernandez signing off for Comical Opinions, and you have a great Monday.